Kozosangpo and a warm welcome to Bhutan This Week, our weekly news magazine. I'm Tashiangdan. Our top stories of the week. His Majesty the King graces opening ceremony of the Parliament. His Majesty the King confers Dha to the newly elected National Council members. His Majesty the King arrives in the country after a royal visit to the Middle East. His Majesty the King graced the opening ceremony of the 9th session of the Third Parliament on 8th June. Members of the royal family, senior government officials, and other dignitaries attended the opening ceremony. The ceremony was also attended by the Speaker of the Western Australia Legislative Assembly and her delegation.
His Majesty the King was received in the traditional Chibdral ceremony by the National Assembly Speaker, the Prime Minister, the Opposition Leader, the National Council Chairperson, and other members of the Parliament. The Speaker in his opening address offered his gratitude to His Majesty the Druk Gyalpo for the unwavering commitment and relentless pursuit of national prosperity and happiness. He also expressed appreciation to His Holiness the Jekempo and the religious order for continuous rituals for the well-being of the land.
지다지비나 자갈로 집균난데 숭촉 숭드 마랍지 나메날레 조라 록미 턴긴다 칠정기 고레 숭드기 줍데 bom베라 준비델로 주석기 혼레 미와 출로 이치기 고레 가딘체 세주니일라 대좀베라 미와 나들은 부채 추다 미와 개준 넘니기 유나이티드 킹덤기 갭다 결준 팅가 수위기 텐데나 델죽 넘버 주메데기 두다 유나이티드 킹덤 야캅니기 바나 이 믹셀기 틀럼 야다탄이나 펠랍 자체우베라 주니 임레 주속기 혼레 미와 나들은 부채 추다 미와 결준 넘니루 셈기 딘레라 The
Speaker also welcomed the newly elected members of the 4th Parliament of the National Council and expressed gratitude to all those who participated in the National Council election. The 9th session of the 3rd Parliament will see the National Assembly table the Budget Appropriation Bill for the fiscal year 2023 to 2024, the Pay Revision Bill 2023, and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, among others. Meanwhile, the two houses will deliberate on the Forest and Nature Conservation Bill of Bhutan, the Civil Liability Bill of Bhutan, and the Public Accounts Committee's review report. Kinzang Haden, PBS News.
His Majesty the King granted Dha to the newly elected members of the National Council at the Tashichozong on 6th June. The National Council elections were held in April this year.
His Majesty also conferred Dhakin to the new chairperson of the National Council, Sangye Doji, who is the National Council member from Chukha. The National Council has 25 members, with 20 members elected from each of the 20 districts of Bhutan, and 5 eminent persons are nominated to join the elected members by the Druk Gyalpo. The eminent members of the 4th National Council are Tasho Tashiwangel, Phunso Rapten, Kyazang Choki Doji, Ugin Tsiring, and Tashichozom. The 9th session of the Parliament will convene from the 8th of June. Sherab Doji, BBS News.
His Majesty the King arrived back in the country on 6th June following a royal visit to the state of Qatar and the United Arab Emirates.
His Majesty the King visited Qatar from 30th May to 1st June and the United Arab Emirates from 1st to 3rd June. While in Qatar, His Majesty met with the Deputy Emir of Qatar, His Highness Sheikh Abdullah bin Hamad Al Thani, as well as senior leaders of the Qatar royal family, government and business community. His Majesty also granted an audience to more than 800 Bhutanese in Doha, the capital of Qatar. While in the UAE, His Majesty the King met with the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, His Highness Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed Al Nahyan, as well as members of the royal families, senior government and business leaders. His Majesty granted an audience to more than 600 Bhutanese who are in the UAE in Dubai. Yishe Gelson, BBS News.
A prayer ceremony was held at the Grand Kundre of the Tashichozong on 4th June for the victims of the train tragedy that took place at Odisha in India on 2nd June.
His Majesty the Fourth Dugelpo and members of the royal family graced the prayer ceremony and lit 1,000 butter lamps, joined by the Prime Minister, senior government officials, the Indian ambassador, and senior dignitaries from Imtat and Dantak. Over 280 people lost their lives and thousands more were injured in the tragic incident. His Majesty the King and the royal government have expressed condolences to the government and people of India.
Hydropower export revenue dropped by over 1.5 billion ngitam in the first 4 months of the year compared to the same period last year. According to the Royal Monetary Authority's monthly statistical bulletin for May, Bhutan exported over 2 billion ngitams worth of electricity from January to April last year, while the number dropped to about 400 million ngitam this year. The Druk Green Power Corporation attributes the drop in revenue to the country receiving less snowfall and decreased river flow.
The 6 hydropower plants in the country produced almost 1.5 billion units of electricity in the first 4 months of last year. The production dropped by over 100 million units this year. This was despite the temporary shutdown of the Tala hydropower plant from January to mid of March last year for maintenance. Data maintained by the National Center for Hydrology and Meteorology show river flow across the country significantly dropped in the winter months of this year compared to last year. Mandichu and Dagachu hydropower plants exported electricity worth a combined total of almost 400 million ngitam between January to April this year. Exports from the 2 plants contributed to the majority of the country's total exports over the period. On the other hand, domestic sales of electricity increased by almost 700 million ngitam during the same period. According to the DGPC, the country intends to initiate the development of at least a few water reservoir projects to store water during the monsoon and release the water during the winter months. The managing director of the DGPC also said the country's energy sector is considering investing in solar generation that could supplement power requirements during the winter months. Kinzang Hadin, PBS News.
6 bridges under the 12th Five-Year Plan's construction and replacement of bridges project have been constructed so far. 2 such bridges were inaugurated on 6th June at Kasadrapchu and Begana in Thimphu. Under the project, which is funded by the Indian government, 9 bridges are being reconstructed across the country.
Health Minister Dechin Wangmo, along with the Indian ambassador to Bhutan, Sudhakar Dalela, inaugurated the 2 steel composite bridges. The 2 bridges, with carrying capacities up to 70 metric tons, were built at a combined cost of around 65 million ngitram. Construction works began in June 2020. According to the Infrastructure and Transport Ministry, despite challenges such as delayed material deliveries and a shortage of skilled workers due to the pandemic, the construction was completed by an all-Bhutanese team in November last year. The project aims to improve Bhutan's road network, replacing old single-lane Bailey bridges with double-lane bridges, increasing their carrying capacities. According to the Infrastructure and Transport Ministry, the bridges will enhance connectivity and ensure smoother transportation in the country. The 9 bridges under the project include 4 bridges in Thimphu, including the Simtokha 4-lane roundabout, 2 in Samti, which includes the Diana Bridge, 1 each in Dagana and Pemagatsal, and 1 along the Gelifu-Trongsa Highway. This is Dikilazum for BBS News.
Bhutan's new brand, Bhutan Believe, has won 2 prestigious international awards. Bhutan Believe won bronze in the rebranding category of the ADC Annual Awards in New York and the D&AD Wood Pencil Award in the Branding or Brand Refresh category, which recognizes the best of the year in advertising, design, craft, culture, and impact. The winners are selected by highly respected juries.
Bhutan Believe was launched in September last year as the new national brand for the country. According to a press release, there are two audiences for Believe, internal and external. For the Bhutanese, it's about believing in the national vision and the future, while for those interested in Bhutan, it's believing in what the country is trying to achieve. Both awards are set to celebrate the very best in advertising, digital media, graphic design, and more. According to the foreign minister, the awards are a wonderful achievement for the country.
Bhutan Believe was made as a brand for Bhutan after the most difficult periods of COVID. And it has been well received globally. But these two awards that we have received, the ADC Annual Awards and also the D&AD Wood Pencil Award, is a recognition of how the design and advertisement and also awareness that we have created has been a big success.
He added that it also means international recognition of the capability of Bhutanese citizens.
Therefore, receiving these two awards is not only a testament to the work done by all the experts and by all the Bhutanese who are involved in branding exercise, but also it is a recognition by the global community of the abilities of Bhutan to brand itself using Bhutan Believe.
Now in its 102nd year, the ADC Annual Awards is the oldest continuously running industry award show in the world. D&AD promotes excellence in design and advertising, where creative works are judged by more than 330 global creative leaders and practitioners and innovators. Sonam Yudan for BBS News.
The Wamrung Dungka Court in Tashigang sentenced Tsering Doji, a student of Tashitse Higher Secondary School, to almost 3 years in prison for burglary in connection with the missing answer scripts case. The judgment was passed on 7th June. The convict is 21 years old. He has to pay more than 500,000 ngitam as restitution and compensation.
The case came into limelight after the Bhutan Council for School Examinations and Assessment discovered that the answer scripts of 40 students of Tashitse Higher Secondary School were missing on the 13th of January during the paper evaluation. Following the incident, the police investigated the case and detained the convict in February. According to the judgment, the police found pictures of physics answer script in his mobile phone and ashes of the answer script at the site where he burnt the papers. The convict also confessed to the police and the court. However, Tsering Doji can pay in lieu of imprisonment. The court also ordered Tsering Doji to restitute more than 220,000 ngitam to the government for expenses incurred during the re-examination. The judgment further stated that the convict has to pay 40,000 ngitam to the Wamrung Dungka who arranged lodging and transportation for the students and teachers during the re-examination. Additionally, the convict has to pay 3,750 ngitam to each student as compensation for the trauma and stress experienced due to the re-examination. He has to pay the amount within 3 months from the date of the judgment. Kinzang Haden, BBS News.
The construction of the dry port at Gelifu is on track. Construction work started last year and is expected to be ready by the end of next year. The dry port will have warehouses, load transshipment area, cold storage, dedicated driver dormitory, and customs office.
The project is carried out in 2 packages. For now, the first package, which involves site development works, construction of drainage system, boundary wall, entry-exit gates, roads and parking areas is ongoing. The deadline for the work in the first package is April next year. Based on the current progress, the project manager says they expect to complete the work ahead of the schedule.
Physically, we have completed around 60% of the work. It will be completed ahead of schedule as per the progress at site. But simultaneously, we have started with the package 2, work package 2, which consists of building of construction of warehouses.
There will be 3 warehouses for export and import. The estimated cost of the project is 880 million yuan, which is funded by the Indian government. It is being constructed on over 26 acres of land near the Gelfu domestic airport. The facility is expected to facilitate cross-border trade through improved cargo handling services and bring economic benefits. For Command in Gelfu, this is Kipchu for BVS News.
The country has 27 white-bellied herons. This is according to the White-bellied Heron Annual Population Survey 2023. White-bellied herons are some of the world's critically endangered birds. It is an increase of 3 birds compared to last year. According to the report, the overall population trend analysis shows that Bhutan has a slightly increasing trend in the white-bellied heron population. While the increase is not drastic, it is attributed to the country's conservation efforts.
During the 5-day annual nationwide population survey conducted by the Royal Society for Protection of Nature in March this year, 24 birds were observed in the wild and 3 in the conservation center in Tsirang. The highest number of white-bellied herons was recorded from Punatsachu, followed by Mangdechu and Wachu. In 2020, the number was 27, which decreased to 22 in 2021, and last year increased back to 24. The number bounced back to 27 after 2 years.
That increase can be attributed to the RSPN's continuous effort of conservation, that we had been doing a lot of conservation activities in order to save this species. So that we can relate to the RSPN's effort as well as other stakeholders like the Department of Forest and Park Services. So we are collaboratively working with them.
Some of the major conservation works include collaboration with the local community residing along the river basin and establishment of a captive breeding center for the heron at Chanche in Tsirang. The white-bellied herons survive in freshwater rivers, streams, lakes and wetlands in subtropical and temperate forests up to 2,000 meters in altitude, depending primarily on fish. According to the report, due to its extremely small and declining population, the species has been uplifted to critically endangered since 2008, and the decline is projected to increase in the future.
If any activities, any infrastructure development, lots of kind of activity, if you engage along the rivers, definitely there is a threat, including illegal fishing, or we can call it as unsustainable fishing.
According to RSPN, the decline in the population will have an impact on the ecosystem.
We have to realize that every species, we have a role in the ecosystem. If any one of the species get extinct, there will be definitely there will be a disturbance to the food chain. There will be impacts to the ecosystem.
White-bellied heron is the rarest heron in the world and was first spotted in Bhutan by His Majesty the 4th Drukgyalpo in 1975. Under His Majesty's command, the Royal Society for Protection of Nature since 2003 has carried forward the conservation and protection of the bird. Devika Pradhan for BBS News.
1/3 of the Himalayan glaciers are set to disappear even if emissions are stopped right away. 2/3 will disappear by the end of the century if humans continue with the same level of emission. With these questions in mind, a sense of responsibility and purpose arose in a Bhutanese environmentalist during the peak of the COVID pandemic. Since then, Jamyang Jamsowanchu has been working towards advocating on climate change. On World Environment Day, let us walk through his journey.
The National Center for Hydrology and Meteorology, also known as NCHM, identified 2,979 water bodies in the country during Bhutan Glacial Lake Inventory Survey in 2021. Out of the total, 567 within the 4 basins are classified as glacial lakes and 17 of them are declared as potentially dangerous. On the other hand, over 70% of the settlement is located along the 4 drainage basins. The increase in the temperature of the Earth's surface and the melting glaciers by the day poses a threat to the population. Jamyang Jamsowanchu, an actor and environmentalist, embarked on a journey for climate change after the pandemic. Jamyang started his cycling journey to advocate climate change and disseminate the message in the simplest way possible. Last year in August, Jamming trekked for 7 days, walking 9 hours each day to collect melted ice in a discarded plastic bottle from Thorthomi Lake, a potentially dangerous glacial lake in the country. He said the bottle stands for plastic pollution and melted ice represents fast disappearing glaciers due to climate change. Hence, the bottle is a symbol for climate action. He cycled to 14 districts across the country, visiting schools and colleges, raising awareness among the students for the Bhutan edition 2022. Jamming embarked on the second edition of his journey in action on the 2nd of May this year.
So this campaign that I'm starting today is a continuation, and when we first conceived this campaign, we had this idea of taking this message, Bhutan's message, a message from the Himalayas to the world.
He has planned to take a year at a time and dedicate each to a different continent.
So this year it's the Asia edition, and we will be biking across the Himalayas and taking this message to Dubai, where the COP28 climate summit is going to be held in December.
Jamming cycled for a week from Bhutan to Nepal and arrived in the Nepali capital, Kathmandu, on the 10th of May. The journey was closely followed by Ben Clark, an American filmmaker, to document Jamming's entire journey to the COP28. Ben was taken aback when Jamming approached him to be his partner from half a world apart, and he said he could not possibly deny an offer, which is for a good cause.
It is the only carbonated negative country in the entire world that does not contribute to climate change, does not contribute to pollution on a measurable level. And I couldn't believe that these things, knowing about what could happen to Tumtori, knowing what happened in Punakha in 1994, I just couldn't go to sleep at night thinking that I wouldn't help, that I wouldn't be a part of this, because this is what our world needs.
Now we'll be resting for a couple of days, recovering and preparing for the next leg, which is to trek to Everest Base Camp and collect ice, glacier ice, from a Sherpa who will summit Everest and bring that back.
Jamming's father also joined the team from Kathmandu, and the team resumed the journey on the 13th of May.
We've been driving for the past 2 days to get to Thamdara. So this is the route that Tenzin Norgay and Edmund Hillary took some almost 70 years ago.
The trek from Phagding to Lobuche, the base camp, started on the 16th of May and ended on the 22nd. Jamming cycled whenever it was possible. Other times, he trekked with his bike on his back. Jamming suffered a bad headache from the altitude, but he said that it disappeared as the majestic view of the base camp and the tip of the Everest unfurled in front of him. He said he felt a sense of fulfillment as he held the bottle and explained its purpose to the Sherpa. Jamming will resume his ride in the fall. He will start his second leg in September with ice water collected from glaciers in Bhutan and Nepal. He will ride from Kathmandu via Delhi, Istanbul and Karachi, and ultimately towards Dubai. The campaign will deliver the bottle to the Bhutanese delegation at COP28 and request them to address the issue in front of the world leaders. COP28, the 28th conference to the parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC, will take place in Dubai this year. The UNFCCC strives to prevent dangerous human interference with the climate system. Devika Pradhan for BBS News.
That's it for this week. Do join us next week as we bring you the next edition of the program. Thank you for tuning in. Take care and goodbye.